My name is Mélina Mangal, and I am an author. I write lots of different types of books. Some of the books I write are nonfiction books. They are biographies about famous people, people that I think young readers would be interested in learning about. I write fictional books like the Jaden's Impossible Garden series, Jaden's Impossible Garden and Jaden's Secret Ingredient, and I write board books. I have a series of board books called Outside Our Window, and these books feature a couple of cousins that I will tell you about in a minute. In addition to being an author, I am also a school librarian, so I get to work in a school and highlight really cool books to kids just like you. So I love talking about books, reading them as well as writing them. I've been doing this for a long time. I started writing way back when I was about 5 years old. My very first writing was writing letters. And I wrote letters to my father, who was in the military and who had to be away for a while. And I also wrote letters to family members who were abroad. So I wrote to my grandmother, for example, who lived in France, because at the time when I was a kid, we couldn't just pick up the phone and talk to our relatives because phone calls were super expensive. So there was also a time difference. So I couldn't just call my grandmother in the middle of the afternoon for me, because that meant it would be the middle of the night for her. So I wrote letters. And then later on, when I was around middle school, I really liked poetry and started really getting into it and writing it. And that's where the idea of first becoming a writer came to me. And I became a writer after college. So I started writing poetry and then started writing some nonfiction books. Today, I'm focusing on some of the board books that I wrote because they are the newest ones I've been writing, and I think they're a lot of fun. The series Outside Our Window started with Birds Sing Their Words. That was the first book in the series. And then with Trees Stand Tall. Those are the first two, followed by Squirrels Scamper, and then Winds Whirl, Wind Whirls, and after that, Flowers Bloom, which came out recently. And I have another book that's about to be published. It is called Ants Work Together. So this one will be out very soon. And all of these books follow two cousins, Kamali, who is 4 years old, and her cousin, Josiah, who's 3 years old. They live in the city and they love nature. A lot of people think that nature is out there in the woods, and for some people that is what they know and that's what they experience. But for some of us who live in the city, we are surrounded by nature too. Sometimes it requires poking around and searching a little bit more for it, but there's lots of nature in the city. And Kamali and Josiah are curious about it. They want to know more about it. And every day when they look out their window, nature beckons them out. So that is why the series is called Outside Our Window. How many of you like to be outside and like to be in nature? Yep, I knew there would be a lot of people because there's so many cool things and elements and creatures out there to get to know and to explore. The idea for the book started with looking at my kid and my nieces and nephews when they were younger, how they liked to just explore, and they were very curious about everything they saw around them. I also work in a school, so I get to see a lot of students and hear about what makes them excited and what they're interested in. So those ideas came to me. And because I live in the city, I thought, it'd be great to see some more books about kids exploring the city for nature. So the first book was Birds Sing Their Words. And that one started because in nature, we we see lots of things, but we can hear things too, like birds. And birds are animals that we can be aware of, even if we can't see them. We can hear them. So that's why I started writing about them first. And as I said, my most recent book is Ants Work Together. So I'm going to share with you a little bit from these books, so you get a feel for what Kamali and Josiah are up to, and what they like to do. So the first book is Birds Sing Their Words. I'm just going to read a little bit from the first part. And this is written by me, Mélina Mangal, illustrated by the amazing illustrator Stella Lim. This is Birds Sing Their Words. Outside our window, we hear them. Birds. Songs are their words. Birds sing and call, sharing their voices with us all. Where did they go? And Kamali and Josiah explore and look and search and find birds. So this is the first book. Kamali and Josiah set out in one of the more recent books too, Flowers Bloom, also illustrated by Stella Lim and written by me. So this is Flowers Bloom. Outside our window, we smell them. Because with flowers, sometimes we can enter a room or head outside and we can smell them before we can see them. So outside our window, we smell them. What is that wonderful fragrance? Flowers. Some flowers last a while. Some flowers become food for people and animals. And think about the flowers that you like or that you see when you head outside. What do you think about them? What makes them special to you? This is Flowers Bloom. And my most recent book, you're going to get a sneak peek right here, is Ants Work Together. And Kamali and Josiah are on the cover again, looking at ants. So Ants Work Together, also illustrated by Stella Lim. Outside our window, we search for them. Can you see them? They are tiny and hard to see. Ants. Ants are all around. And then Josiah and Kamali explore and they find out a lot more about ants and how we are kind of like ants too. There's lots of similarities. What I like about these books is that at the back, the very back of the book, there's many more facts about ants, flowers, birds. So there's a lot more information about ants, but also about the senses that we use to find out more about ants. What I love about these books and about writing them is that I got to do a lot of research for them as well. I knew a fair amount about ants, but I learned so much more as I wrote this book. I learned that there are over 16,000 different types of ants, different species of ants in our world. That is amazing. And so for each one of these books, they are a short story, but there's also amazing facts at the back too that bring these elements to life. So that was my latest book, Ants Work Together, from the Outside Our Window series. And I know that some of you had some questions about writing, about my writing process, about books, and I'm going to answer some of those now. One question was, what was my favorite book in the Outside Our Window series? And that's a hard question for me to answer, but I love all the books, and every time I write a new book, that becomes my new favorite. But I do have to say that I think my first of these series, my first favorites were the first two that came out, Birds Sing Their Words and Trees Stand Tall. Especially birds, because I love birds. As I mentioned, I love, you can hear them no matter where you are. And I really like listening to bird song and trying to identify them, even when I can't see them. And so I have to say this is probably my first favorite. But now that I have a new one coming out, Ants Work Together is probably my most recent favorite. I think they're all really fun books, and I love the information and the illustrations too. I think they're beautiful. There will be a few more books in the series coming out after this one also. There's going to be one about rain, there will be one about snow, one about clouds, one about stones and rocks. So keep your eyes open for those too. I think you'll enjoy them. So another question that I've been asked is, what do I like to read? Wow, that is a good question too, and I love talking about books because that's what I do. I'm lucky enough to be a librarian also, so I get to talk about books all the time, and I get to recommend books. So I am trying to read as much as I can. There's so many great picture book authors out there, especially in the Twin Cities where we live, and we have authors like Kaukalia Yang, Shannon Gibney, David LaRochelle, Molly Beth Griffin, Sarah Warren, Karen Lachane Kenny, so many really great authors. So I love reading picture books as much as possible. I love novels, especially mysteries and historical fiction, because I like traveling back in time. And when I read historical fiction, I feel like I've stepped into another era, another time period, and I feel as if I'm there. So I love reading those types of novels for fiction. And because I write nonfiction and I am curious about the world and so many things in it too, I really love reading nonfiction as well. So right now I'm reading books like this one about wild berries and fruits, and more about plants, because I've been really fascinated with plants lately and wanting to know a lot more about them. So I love reading nonfiction, which has excellent photos and lots of really cool facts. I also love reading about real people from history. Biographies are some of my favorites as well. Books like this one about George Washington Carver by Tanya Bolden. So I try to read as much as I can. And when I can't physically open the book and read it myself, I love listening to audiobooks, so that when I have to do some of my chores, I can also listen to books at the same time. So I am always reading, and I hope that you are too. I have one more question. This is kind of a big question about my process. How do I write? And that is a really good question, because lots of writers have different ways that they go about writing their stories. For me, my writing process starts actually with going outside. So it involves stepping out into the backyard or going on a walk. And on my walks, I am observing and soaking in everything around me. So I like to listen to the birds. I like to look at all the trees and plants and animals out there and people, and hear all the sounds. I take a little notebook with me, so I am trying to jot down my observations. Sometimes I will speak into my phone what I'm thinking or what I'm observing, and sometimes I'll just stop right there and write in my notebook, depending on where I am. And then when I come home, or when I can sit and write more, I write in a notebook with pen on paper, the old-fashioned way. It's also called longhand, and I will start jotting down my ideas, and I will write the beginnings of a story, or I'll write questions, anything that pops into my mind that I'd like to say or that I feel I want to work on. So I write all those down, and then I start making my story, writing my book. And then I will take that, my notebook, and type my words into the computer, print it out, reread it, look at it, make changes, delete words that don't sound right, and try to make my writing as good as it can be, as good as a story as it can be. And I do that over and over and over again until it becomes almost perfect, until it becomes ready to make it into the book. So that's my writing process. I also have, always next to me, I have some nature elements that I collect on my walks to keep me connected to nature. Things I find like this seed pod or acorns or really cool little rocks. So I like to stay connected to nature as much as I can, and that's one way that I'm able to do that. So that's just a little bit about my writing process. How many of you like to write? I knew there'd be some writers out there. I hope you write as much as you can. Don't even worry about what it is at first. Just write and enjoy that act of writing. I really enjoyed sharing a little bit about my books and about my writing process with you, and I hope that you enjoy reading my books, and I hope you try writing some of your own. That is one way to connect yourself with nature, by writing about what you see and feel and hear when you're out, but other stories may come to you in the process as well. So thank you for being such great listeners, and I hope you continue reading as much as you can. Enjoy.